Hey everyone, welcome back to Nutrition Science. So we're here today to work on a lab. So you'll need to pull up the Popcorn Lab in Google Classroom and follow along with what we're doing. So for the first part of the lab, lab always starts off with an intro. The intro is just kind of like that's the hook. What are we going to be doing today? What do we need to do? What's some background info we may need to get us started? And a hint, sometimes those analysis questions, there's answers to those inside of the intro. So what we're going to do today is kind of take a look at some of the different preparations of popcorn, and I'm going to just kind of talk us through a few different things along the way. So a purpose of the lab is just kind of like why are we doing it? So why are we doing this lab? We want to see the caloric content of different preparations of popcorn. That's what we're trying to figure out today. We're going to look at two different ones today. We're going to be looking at air popped and oil popped popcorn. So as you're working your way through the lab, the next part is the hypothesis. And this is the one thing that makes me crazy. Do the hypothesis before you do the lab. In some nerdy kind of way, this is the fun part. So when you do a hypothesis, you get to see, am I right, am I wrong, and kind of wait to see what happens as you're doing the lab to try and figure that out. So some of you are probably stuck on an if-then statement for the hypothesis, like if this, then that's going to happen. That's fine. It doesn't have to be. We're just trying to figure out, what we think is going to happen. So if you flip over and then you take a look at your procedure, you have a couple of different things. So the first thing we're going to have to do is you can see I have my 15 kernels of popcorn, and I'm going to need to weigh them. So I'm over here by my balance, and as you can see, that is all. Where am I? We're gonna make you dizzy, guys. Sorry. So there goes my balance. Oop. And I'm just gonna swap these out because it is zeroed already. And you could see those 15 kernels are weighing in at 2.62 grams. So make sure that you do record that in the proper place on your data table. And what I'm going to set up right now, I have my 250 milliliter beaker. I have my 5 ml of oil. I'm going to add the oil to my beaker. And here goes my 15 kernels. And now I have my top. This is my nerdy science version of Jiffy Pop popcorn. And I'm going to put that up on the top so stuff doesn't go flying. And I'm going to kind of try to push my foil to the top so that I can see what's happening. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to heat it up, and I need to get this heated up until my kernels have all popped. A couple things to talk about while we're waiting for this to cook up. In the movie theaters, they usually use coconut oil. And we have a chart that you can look at, and you can see coconut oil is pretty high in saturated fat. But the reason that it's used is because you can keep that oil at a higher temperature for a longer period of time. So when you're looking at a big movie theater that has, 10 theaters, like one movie's emptying out, the other one is just starting, so they have this constant flow, so you can kind of keep it going. But keep in mind what we talked about with lipids, right? Fats are a solid at room temperature, oils are a liquid at room temperature. So, what are they putting on that popcorn when you're asking for extra butter? That's a thing to think about too. Other oils that we can use different examples for, we're talking about, people in the fryers a lot of time use peanut oil if there's no allergy, because peanut oil can go longer before the oil has to be changed. So health is not always a priority. It's, most of the time what's cheapest. So keep these different things in mind. Reminder that on the second part of our lab, we're going to be going air popped. We'll talk about that when we get there. But these things are going to start getting ready to pop. And I am going to poke a hole in the top, let some heat escape. It's my high-tech tool. Yep, and there they go, guys, popping. Hoping you were able to see that. It's kind of cool. All right, our Science Jiffy Pop popcorn. Move this around already. Use my beaker tongs. I think we are there. Okay. So, next part of our lab, excuse me. Right, we have our heat-resistant tables. Next part of our lab, we need to weigh these, right? So we're going to have to get these kernels out. Let this cool off a little bit more. We have 15 kernels popped, and the directions do say to use forceps. So we'll have a question in there later. Why am I using forceps? Why am I not just dumping this whole beaker out into this weighing tray? That is the question. All right, so I like to ask the questions that you can't look up. Like when you're like, oh, I can't find that answer on the internet, and that reason is it doesn't exist on the internet. These are thought questions. So if you're counting and you're going, there's more than 15, it's not a magic trick. Some of them broke. So I now have my 15 kernels, and I'm going to weigh them again. Remember, my balance is zeroed out. And as you can see, the weight is now at 4.72 grams. All right, and that's that. That is our oil-popped popcorn. So you're going to collect that data. We'll talk about what you're going to do with that data, and we're going to talk about all those calculations in a minute or two. But first, make sure you have all that info, and then we're getting ready now to move on to our air-popped popcorn.